Well, Gopher fans, welcome back to another episode of Sky U Pod, your college huddle Gopher podcast. Today we're previewing the upcoming matchup against Rutgers. A lot of drama surrounding this. We'll get to it in a little bit here, but Kurt, Max, how you both doing tonight?
Oh, just good, man. I know there's a lot going on, but trust me, the election news will still be going on even after this show. So look at this as your break from the stuff that's not important in life and focus back in on college football, on Gopher football team that's got a chance to do something special this season yet. Also, the college football playoff rankings dropped today, which I know we're going to get to. Uh, and just the NFL trade deadline, kind of a chaotic day overall, just in the news world. But
Yeah.
happy to be here talking Gopher football.
Yeah, Gophers have been playing well, stringing a couple wins in a row here, and now we're at that time of the season where we get Maction back on weeknight, so
Yeah.
can't really beat that.
Yeah, I was thinking about making my lock something like that in the tradition of Maction, but it's a little too late. I got an even better one, but we'll get to that towards the end of our show. Um, but fellas, let's just talk about the big thing surrounding college football. The first college football playoff rankings dropped today at 7 p.m. Central. What are your initial thoughts? Max, I'll start with you. You've seen those rankings. Any feelings whatsoever about them?
Um, yeah, I mean it's pretty much as expected, I would think, for the at least the top 10.
Let's run
I can
through it since it just dropped, just really quick
True.
for any of the
Okay.
viewers that didn't do it.
Uh,
I have it up right here.
okay, I
But
do
okay,
too.
so
But
all right, one we got Oregon, two Ohio State, three Georgia, four Miami, five Texas, six Penn State, seven Tennessee, eight Indiana, nine BYU, 10 Notre Dame, 11 Bama, 12 Boise State. Then you got SMU 13, A&M 14, LSU 15, Ole Miss 16, Iowa State 17, Pitt 18, Kansas State 19, Colorado 20, Washington State 21, Louisville 22, Clemson 23, Missouri 24, and Army at 25. The disrespect is showing to Army. But that's the top 25. Just dropped, I think, an hour ago. So just want to get that out there in case anybody was flying blind.
Yeah, no, thanks for doing that. I'm looking at it in front of me and I'm not thinking of not everyone can see that, but um yeah, within the top 12 or so, I could probably nitpick a couple things. I feel like maybe Notre Dame is getting a little bit of a free pass for just such a terrible, terrible loss early in the year, but they're still a solid team, so they still have time to prove it. I'm a little bit surprised. I guess you can make the argument about the record, but I'm surprised Indiana is not in closer to top five, especially behind just the way Tennessee's been trending down a little bit.
It's ridiculous. That's my biggest gripe with the
Yeah,
whole thing.
like
Like, we could nitpick like Missouri at 24. I mean, literally being just they started the season high. So for everyone that tells you
right.
preseason rankings don't matter, they do because that's why Missouri's sitting at 24. They've gotten
Yeah,
smoked against every tough team they've played, and they've won games. I mean, not even that convincingly, and so they just stick them in at 24. Sorry, I cut you off,
right.
Max.
Yeah, no, that's totally. I would agree completely. And then I mean the team right in front of them too, and Clemson at 23. I would feel like they should be higher. I mean they've lost to Georgia and Louisville. Is that right? There's only two losses.
Yeah, I'm guessing the recent loss. Also, that clearly shows too, right? Like
Yeah,
of when you lost, because I
right.
mean, there's some losses that are forgiven, like you pointed, like Notre Dame being at 10. I mean, I guess they could have been higher, but
Yeah,
how recent you lost definitely plays a factor in these rankings.
right. And yeah, I don't know. It just feels like some teams get a pass when other teams don't. There's still a lot of time to play it out. If there's one, my biggest gripe as far as a team that I don't think should have made it at all is Colorado, and they're at 20. Like they've
yeah,
literally beaten no one. They've had really close games. Like they've gotten lucky, honestly, in a few games. The fact
Yeah.
that they made it at all and making it all the way up at 20 makes no sense. But that's really my biggest gripe. It's still early. I don't know. I don't buy too much into it at this point, but it is interesting to see. Like you said, Kurt, like if they're ranked there now, then they're just going to move up and down starting from this point
Right.
on, which drives me
Exactly.
absolutely crazy. It should just restart
Which
every week. But
which is why the Indiana ranking is insane. It would be one thing if they were barely getting by these teams, but they're blowing out everybody. You can't tell me if Indiana just switch the logos on the team. If Indiana was Penn State and Penn State was undefeated with that schedule, Penn State would be like number 2 in the country. Tennessee, same
Yeah.
thing. Like the fact that Indiana is at number 8 behind Penn State has lost to arguably the only above like really good team that they played in Ohio State. They didn't even score an offensive touchdown at home against Ohio State, and I know Ohio State's really good. Clearly, they're ranked number 2, but I mean, Penn State's best win is at home against Illinois, and not that that's like anything to be ashamed of, but Indiana's just blown out everybody, and Penn State has definitely shown its struggles already. I don't get how Indiana starts below them or Tennessee. Tennessee's played everybody tight except for the first 3 games of the year, and they should have probably lost that Bama game, but Bama had 200 some yards in penalties. It felt like, and then they've lost to who did Tennessee actually lose to? I don't have that in front of me, but they have a loss too already. So
Oklahoma,
they lost to Oklahoma,
or no,
who's not
Arkansas.
ranked.
Arkansas.
Oh, Arkansas. Okay, but
Wait,
they had a close one against
I'm getting
Oklahoma.
them mixed up. I don't remember which one was it.
I don't know. But my point being, they've lost to one of those teams that's not great, and if the roles reversed, those teams would be stacked right up there. But since it's Indiana, they're going to be kept back. So, and I know I'm sounding really negative about the overall rankings right now, but I that's just something they got to get rid of, especially if you're going to 12 to get more teams included. Because when you're going to do that, then it just fills, and this is why it is this way, but they're just going to try and stuff in as many big blue bloods as possible in that top 12 and get more eyes on the playoff games, which is, it is what it is. Fat Boy Yogi here, Sky Yuma, everyone. That's right, man. Gophers are on a roll, talking college football playoff rankings right now, which, I mean, I know we're not going to be forgiven for those 2 losses at the start of the year, or, Iowa ended up winning big, but I think you could argue that Minnesota and Iowa could maybe be in this top 25 right now, but I'm not going to make that argument at this point. I'm just saying Indiana should be higher. But that said, when you look at the 12-team playoff, which I was not a fan of, like I thought 8 was the perfect number. I thought 12 would water it down. You look at these first-round matchups currently as is, you'd have Ohio State hosting Boise State, Tennessee hosting Indiana, Texas hosting Alabama, and Penn State hosting Notre Dame. All of my gripes I just had kind of go away. I mean,
Yeah.
all of those games sound spectacular. That's going to be amazing to watch, especially since that first round is at home on college campuses.
Yeah.
That is what college football is all about. That's what it should be. And yes, Indiana should be hosting one of those games if it was ending today, but it is what it is. And then you got, not only that, then you have other aspects too that you could get into with this is like BYU gets to play the winner of Ohio State, Boise State, which assuming Ohio State, that's tough, but they're the 4 seeds, so that makes sense. But then you have like, would you rather be Georgia and get Penn State or Notre Dame, or Miami and get Bama versus Texas? I'm not sure about that one, to be honest. Like, I think I might rather take on. I don't know. It just gets interesting the way you look out of how you could potentially benefit, especially if you're Ohio State, getting to go on to play BYU rather than be one of those top 4 seeds getting to play. Like, I mean, Miami would start out with Alabama or Texas, and I'd much rather play BYU as a power 2 school in the playoff. So interesting stuff like that this format's going to give us to talk and think about. So that part's exciting. I've rambled on enough about this. So Shitty, what are your thoughts on it?
I'm going to come in and I want you guys to fight me on this if you think it's ridiculous, but I'm going to come in with a sort of a hot take. And I think all of us might agree with this. I just think these rankings are quite dumb, to be honest. At the end of the day, and I feel like over the course of since the dawn of the college football playoff era with the four teams, the committee has usually gotten the top four right, barring, I think, last season, the very last season when they totally neglected Florida State. I thought that they pretty much, you know, order permitting, we could probably argue about the specific order of the top four, but the four teams that deserve to be in the playoff are usually the four teams that deserve to be in there, barring last year. Having said that, I don't know if I have enough confidence now that you said it, Kurt. It's a little watered down now. Now we're getting into the weeds of letting the blue bloods in. And Outing comes here and says rankings are great for a podcast, though. They are. That's true. And that's why they do it. They want to get people talking about college football. They want people to tune in. They want drama. They want us to talk about it. And that's good for ratings and numbers. So I do understand it. Outing's totally right. But I do think that in principle, I don't really see the point of it. I agree with you, Kurt. I think an 18 playoff, had they brought it in years ago, maybe we'd stick with that. Just have your conference winner. Had we done this, the whole conference, NFL Junior wouldn't be upon us had they just done it earlier. You just have your
Yeah.
conference winners automatically make in, and you maybe have a couple wild cards sprinkled in there. A group of five, an old group of five team that goes in there as well. I just think that these rankings are pointless. And frankly, to be honest, now that I've seen this list that they gave us tonight, I feel like they totally think it's all about the eye test, fellas. I don't think it
Well,
has anything to do with how many wins and losses you have. I think it's purely eye test.
that's
And I, I get it. Like, you do want the best teams to be in the playoff. I get it. But how do we let the little guy sometimes get in there and just have a chance? Like Indiana, Kurt and Max, you're exactly right. Indiana is undefeated and they're playing tremendously. And yet I still feel like they're slighted a little bit. That's why I feel like, oh, Colorado, Max, you touched on, why are they ranked? They're flashy. They got Travis Hunter. He's a Heisman candidate. But I just think the eye test is probably one of the number one factors in determining these rankings. And I do think that it's a factor, certainly, but I don't know if it's the factor when it comes to wins and losses. And that's
the
my take.
the easiest way to fix this, and the right way to do the playoff, is you should, now that it's 12. I mean, keep your conference champs. Your four highest ones are the four highest teams, your conference champs, and you get that fifth one that also makes it. You can have whatever wild card you want, but the way to fix it is to go by most deserving team. You can't figure out best. They keep trying to tell us they're going to put the best teams in. The people
Most
picking
deserving.
don't know that. And the perfect example happened last year. Washington beats Oregon regular season, and all year, everybody, every model they had, everything that was telling us who the best team is, was predicting Oregon to beat them in the conference championship game and go ahead and into the playoff. All their data driven metrics. I think Oregon might have even hopped them at one point or got close to it in those rankings last year. Like, the eye test doesn't work because every eye test that they used was having Oregon ahead of Washington last year. And what Washington do? They beat them again. They went to the national championship game. Like, throw out the eye test because it's not a good enough
I agree.
test. Clearly, they use the eye test to get these bigger programs in there. That's what it
Yeah.
is. And yeah, it is fun seeing Penn State host Notre Dame. That would be amazing. That's an awesome game. But those teams are good enough to get there as it is to be the most deserving. Like, just let it shake out. I feel like these first rankings, and then like Max said, like, now that one beats the other, going to be like, okay, well, this team's only going to fall 2 spots because they did lose to our ranked, our 12th ranked team. So that's a pretty good loss for them. And then you're
Yep.
playing this game of, who's got better losses and whatnot. But I just think it's going to sort itself out to begin with if you do the 12 most deserving teams. And so that would be my pitch, is to just change the criteria that they say they're picking from altogether. I mean, because especially now with NIL just paying your roster, you're going to get most of those blue bloods, half of them at least, in there every year. So, or 6 of 12, I should say. But
Yeah. I do feel
That's
like
grand.
too, like I agree, Kurt, like seeing Penn State and Notre Dame would be awesome. But I'll admit, like part of me is a little biased in thinking that me myself I'm talking about because of the names. Penn State and Notre Dame, and they are good teams, don't get me wrong. But like if the rankings are truly who's deserving, I feel like even if it was like a Penn State versus Indiana or a Penn State versus Boise State, I feel like the competition would speak for itself. I feel like the game itself, regardless of who's playing in, if they're deserving of the spot, I feel like that will be as good of a game, you know,
Right. No,
played.
I know, but
Yeah,
there's no doubt that like bigger brands get bigger eyes, which is
for
always going to
sure.
be part of the appeal to for the playoff to put those teams in there. But
Yeah,
I agree. If I think it sorts
yeah,
itself out if you just let the teams play and go on that criteria for the most part. I don't
yeah.
know. We got some pretty good games in the BCS era, even though that was like a full on computer just picking it. I'm not saying to go back to that. I just mean
The
don't
crystal
take
ball of the
don't
beast. Yes, yeah.
exactly. I do think that was the best trophy. That trophy looked
It
way
was
better
pretty
than just
sweet.
the gold statue thing that they got
Yeah.
now. But yeah, lost my. Oh, don't let recruiting rankings play so much into deciding who the best team is, which is kind of what it turns into a little bit. But
Yeah.
anyway, overall, I think I am more happy than I thought I would be just seeing the potential matchups and whatever. We've been saying it. I think we've all been in agreement that we wanted it to be 8 teams for a while, but I'll take 12 over 4.
Yeah.
And especially with the way that bowl games have been going, unfortunately, like you get some of these big matchups still in bowl games, but you're seeing backup players with guys opting out, and it's just not the same kind of vibe. That's all back now to me. Like I was the same as you, Kurt. I didn't really want it to be expanded this big, but now that I see it and I really compare, like, well, some of even the New Year's Six games just aren't as exciting as like they really should be with some of the matchups you get
Yeah,
now. They're going to be exciting and they're really going to mean something more. So
Yeah.
that is what I'm looking forward to the most, I think.
Great
Craig
point.
Felton wants 3, take it or leave it. I'm assuming he means 3 playoff teams. We're just gonna leave that there and move on.
Thanks for tuning in finally, Treg. Um,
Yeah.
no, but yeah, I think overall all of our views are the same. Yeah, it's cool. It's going to be pretty awesome to see how this plays out at the end of the day. I just hope by the end of the year they get it right. There's still a quarter of a season left, so let's see how it ends up.
Oh, one other thing I want to say about this. Penn State, I feel like got the most favorable ranking out of anybody, being as high as they were, with basically beating, only Illinois at this point. They got to be rooting like heck for us to crawl into their rankings, just to, in their eyes, get another quality win to try and boost their resume as they get close here to the end of the season.
Maybe the media and the college football playoff next week, assuming the Gophers win, sneaks us in at 25 to make this matchup. I haven't
Could
looked
see
up
it.
at the next week's slate for matchups, but if that's one big one, maybe they do that for the drama. But we'll get to that next week. Um, a little more kind of, I'd say, talk and drama is Rutgers. So before we kind of break down this game, let's just get into the storylines, fellas. Athan's back. He's facing his old team. Flip Dixon, same sort of storyline with him. Uh, our defensive coordinator, Corey Heatherman, he's going against his whole team. Kurt Soraka uh, against PJ again. And then I think ultimately PJ is going against, Shiano, one of his mentors. He looks up to him. There's a lot of respect for this program at Rutgers and everything. There's just a lot going on between these two programs, I think, and a lot of potential storylines. So I wanted to ask you guys, which one of these sort of scenarios really gets you fired up? Kurt, I want to hear you first. What do you think, man?
So for me, obviously, I think the obvious answer for a lot of people is going to be Athan, because it sounds like it was kind of like, you're not going to be guaranteed anything. You're coming back, but to me, that storyline not that it's nothing, but he went on. He kind of got a somewhat happy ending. Like he's off at Rutgers. He's a starting Big Ten quarterback somewhere else. So it'd be different if he came in here on like I don't know, trying to think like a North Carolina or like some out of conference team was trying to like get his one chance. I feel like it's I don't know, maybe not as big of a deal as that he ended up so well. For me, I'm going it's Soraka versus Fleck. If I'm Fleck, that's the one I want the most. I mean, this guy left you twice, once for Penn State and then once for Rutgers. I get it was a pay raise, but I mean, I feel like Rutgers in taking. I mean, they took multiple players. Like, I don't think Curtis Dunlap is still there. Maybe he is, but he was a guy that left along with Flip Dixon. Flip Dixon turned out to be a really good college safety who was a guy that was going to play here. Don't forget, their defensive coordinator is our old safeties coach as well. So I have all these people that left PJ, but Soraka being the one that left him twice, and for basically let's call it what it is, a sidestep. Yes, a pay raise, but a sidestep back to Rutgers. To me, that's the big one. PJ hired internally, has got things going, replaced the quarterback. Uh, on paper has the better offense right now. So I think PJ wants it the most going against Soraka. To be honest, that's what I think. But
Can I before you get into it, Max? I got to ask Kurt this question.
yeah,
Curdy, do you think that our offense, however, 2 years ago when he was here, we still had Tanner, if I
yep.
remember when Soraka came back. Was that more Soraka or more Tanner? The offensive woes that we saw 2 years ago.
Well,
And
I
from
mean,
from I guess we
truthfully,
had
both.
perspectives, and then we had
Yeah,
our perspectives. But what do you think PJ's perspective was too? Let me know
I,
both of them. What do you think your perspective is, and then what do you think PJ's is?
well, I'll start with PJ. I think if Soraka doesn't leave, I think he's still here. So I don't think the offense was so bad in PJ's eyes that he would have
Sure,
moved on. Plus, it was a very conservative offense. It and it's continued on that way with Shiano. Rutgers is still pretty much a very conservative offense. So I know Shiano and PJ are one in the same, being that Fleck coached under him for a while. So makes a lot of sense there. So maybe Soraka would be a little bit more aggressive, but I think it's a little bit in Soraka's DNA as well to be that conservative. He likes to run the ball, like especially third and long, but maybe that's Shiano telling him that as well. But yeah, so I think Fleck would probably blame player personnel. I think you saw that, right? Like we reshuffled the receiver core.
yeah,
There might be a certain receiver that dropped the touchdown against Purdue that ended up as a pick
yeah,
that kind of cost us the Big Ten West that year. So I don't put it all on Tanner, because we saw what Tanner could do
yeah.
when he had good receivers. Now, you're not always going to have two NFL receivers. We're in college, so could Tanner have been better that last year? Absolutely, but it's on the coaches to go out and get the players what's needed when you know what you got at quarterback too. So
Sure.
falls on everyone for sure, but I don't know. Did that answer both of them? I think Soraka would
Yeah.
still be here
No.
if he did
Yep.
decide to
Yep.
leave.
Yep.
It looks like we're better off. You know, uh, I still think there's some to be. I don't want to. Harbaugh is looking very strong right now as an offensive coordinator. He's having a really good
He
stretch.
is.
I'm not gonna just say like I'm fully sold yet. I'm gonna wait and just see how these
Well,
last two
that'll be
games
a
go.
topic of discussion
Just
later.
want to get a few comments in here. Dave Linsky, I need this right now. A good distraction from the election. Skyima. That's right, Dave. The election will still be going on once this show's over. Plus, long term, I think this has bigger consequences than what's happening across America right now. So,
I
just my two
agree.
cents. Outing's got a good question. Does this have the earmarks of a classic PJ letdown game, touchdown favorite, and coming off a big win?
Um,
Maybe,
I,
but
I think that the letdown game was the UCLA game. I think
yeah.
has PJ had a letdown game this far into the season yet? I feel like by now, I can't
Well,
remember. Maybe
I
so. I
mean,
mean,
you could
I
say
guess that
2019
doesn't.
Iowa. You
Yeah,
could.
true.
I
I
mean, they
guess
came
that
out
doesn't
flat
really
as fuck.
matter
Yeah.
whether or not he has had or not had one. I'll get in my prediction later, but I don't know. I'm feeling really confident about these Gophers, but I think that's what constitutes as a
Yeah.
letdown game potentially.
The factors are there for
So
sure.
yeah,
I mean, they're coming off a bye week. We're coming off a win against a ranked team on the road, feeling really good. I mean, PJ said like, one of their mantras was I don't remember exactly something like doesn't matter that Bielema was 10-0 against the University of Minnesota, whatnot, but clearly saying that around the players, you were building that up, so the players had something going into that Illinois game. So to keep that going week to week, that's a very tough thing in college football. So yeah, I don't think it will be a letdown game, but it does have all the earmarks of a
it,
letdown.
yeah, it does.
And then as far as the touchdown favorite, like I think Vegas opened it up at like 3, if I'm not mistaken. So it wasn't like it was Vegas coming out and just declaring us a full touchdown. Now the money's come in and
Yeah.
moved it. But
As
yeah,
an
no,
outside
I think it
fan,
definitely does.
I'd probably nail the 3 point favorite. As if you know what I mean. Like
Right.
as it opens, I probably wouldn't have nailed it, but I think Outing's right. It does constitute for a letdown game, but I don't think it happens.
But it would we agree, Max? I'll start with you since you're about to talk. You can feel free to add anything that I just cut you out that you're going to say. But you'd consider it a letdown game if we dropped this game at Rutgers, right? Because like a month ago,
Oh yeah,
this was considered
for
a coin
sure.
flip. I'm not saying we can't lose it now, but I mean I think ESPN's got us at like a 61% chance to win right now or something like that. So you would all agree that's considered a letdown if we drop this one, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Especially with where these teams are at in the season.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. To the question about like, is this a classic PJ letdown? I mean, the feeling is like, yeah. I mean, I think it would be a letdown if we lost, obviously, but we've also, I feel like we've had the classic PJ letdown games and we've won them all with UCLA and even the Maryland game coming off a bye and homecoming. Maryland is like kind of, I don't know, an easier opponent. You've got Illinois coming up next, and we completely handled them. So just the way it's felt a little bit differently this year, I'm hoping I don't eat these words and saying that there's no way we're going to look past Rutgers, but it's just been different this year, I guess.
I think the Rutgers and all the questions PJ's going to get asked about it too kind of help. Like they know that this game's got to focus
Right.
on. Like I don't think anyone else. I think Minnesota knows how big this game is just with all the storylines heading into it of all the
Yeah.
familiarity and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Nationally, I think this game's totally slept on. We're on
Oh
NBC,
yeah.
but
Yeah. I do. Yeah. I'll get to the topic question right after this, but I do think I wonder how much PJ is gonna almost not even want to play into the whole like narratives and storylines. Like he didn't really want to play into the Bielema storyline at all, which I get. Like as a coach, like you can use it as motivation to an extent, but you also can't overplay it where it's like there's too much pressure on it, or that you're really focusing on the narratives and not the actual team. And I noticed that in his press conference yesterday, he never called Ethan by his name. He just said him, talking about the
he said
quarterback.
it's
Like,
because
yeah,
he's
he's
dead to
good.
him.
But that's how he acted. Like he just acted like he's just another quarterback that they have to play. So I wonder how much they're not gonna like lean into the narrative. You know what I mean? And just approach it
Since
like
you
every
brought
other
that up,
game.
were you a little bit surprised? You just be like happy to see Ethan doing well with another Big Ten school. Like they're a good coach, good program over there, and I know he's gonna do. Like he didn't say any of that. He just kind
No.
of like
Yeah, I don't know. And like, is that? I mean, that's great mind games. He's just it's just
I don't
another
think it
I
ended
think
well. I guess that's what
I
I'm hinting
no.
at. I don't think it
Yeah.
ended well.
I
I think
think
he's just
PJ
messing
is
with it.
way more competitive than he lets off. I think that internally he does get billboard material. And he might not share it with all of us, but
I don't.
he
Yeah, that's a
definitely
great
has it
point.
in his head. And I don't know if he shares it with his team, but again, I
I think
think
he
that
does.
he is motivated by that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. PJ's mind's a
Um.
tough thing to wander into. That's for sure.
Yeah, you got that right. To the question of what's the biggest storyline that I'm looking forward to, I agree with you too, 100%, Kurt. I do think it's Soraka versus PJ. Preseason, I think we all had this circled because it was the Ethan revenge game. I just don't think it's as big of a storyline because of Ethan. He's basically got the same numbers as he's had when he was here. So if he was having a crazy year where he's just lighting it up and Rutgers is still that, kind of the sweetheart of the Big Ten and looking at a possible dark horse playoff spot at this point, yeah, then it would be like, yeah, let's
Right.
stop the guy that left us. But at this point, I don't know. It's more of a disappointment if we don't perform well against a average-ish quarterback. on a
Right.
average-ish team.
And it's been no question that Max Brosmer has been what this offense needed. So it
Right.
would be one thing if it was like we're still struggling at the quarterback position, but Brosmer's been so good where it's just like no one's missing anything. And I don't mean that as like an insult to Ethan. It's just we upgraded at the position. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then to your point too about Soraka leaving not just once but twice and he left PJ, who's been a pretty loyal coach with his staff. And then just I mean the fact that he left the second time within the conference, like you said, kind of a lateral move to go join PJ's mentor too. It's like he dumped him for his best friend basically at this point. It's got to be tough, but all the more motivation there too.
Yeah. I think I'm going to take the cop out answer and just say this is just a PJ against Rutgers storyline because from the top down, you literally have some sort of relation with PJ Fleck, and from coaches to players. Like this game, I feel like I said this at the beginning of the year, fellas. This game, I think, matters for PJ because you have an offensive coordinator that essentially left you. You have a quarterback that left you, a safety who might not be as big time as, the quarterback and offensive coordinator, but nevertheless, there's a lot of connections that PJ has with this team that he probably is getting it competitive about. He's probably internalizing it and wanting to make sure that this team is ready to play against Rutgers. Now, I think that you don't say this to the public, but I think as a competitive athlete, as someone who's in sports, whatever, you do have to find something that fires you up and urges you to go out there and compete, to focus, and to hopefully win the game. His mentor, Shiano, I mean, like you have a tremendous amount of respect for him, but of course, at the end of the day, you want to be the one that's on top and prove that you were the Padawan beating the Jedi Master, right? You want to be that guy to take the next step and do that. So I just think all these storylines are important, but I guess ultimately it's just PJ against Giano, PJ against Rutgers, and everything that they're about. Um, so yeah, I expect NBC to probably talk about that on Saturday morning at
Oh, I'm
11,
sure.
just to get some sort of storyline out there. But it's college football. You always have to have some sort of drama surrounding it.
At least we're stuck with good ones and not like when Braylon Allen would be playing. And so you just heard him talk about how he was like 17 years old the whole game or 18 years old the next year or even 19
Yeah,
years old the next year. Like that was all they had. This is like
right.
somewhat interesting stuff.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, with that, let's go ahead and preview this game, fellas. So, again, we are going at Rutgers. Frankly, Rutgers has been sort of in this free fall as of late. We all were feeling pretty good about them, but I feel like injuries have banged them up, and they haven't really been able to put it together. They are 4-4 on the season. The Gophers, as we all know, 6-3. I think is it 4-game Big Ten winning streak right now. Just looking like it's all
Mm-hmm.
coming together at the right time. Let's go ahead and talk about offense here. Well, I guess we could talk about what sticks out the most right now, but let's offensively. Let's go ahead. Max, what do you think?
Yeah, for our offense, I mean, I think the biggest thing that sticks out and the thing that we really need to keep doing is the fact that we haven't turned the ball over in the last 3 games. That's definitely been something, earlier this year, there were so many self inflicted wounds, and the turnovers, like, that's always going to be the worst one. It just feels like when we're not turning the ball over, we can survive some of the penalties or some of the drops a little bit better, or some of like, we don't come away out of the red zone with a touchdown. It's like, well, we still got points, especially not turning the ball over against some well coached teams and the good defenses has been huge too. Like we've been smart with the football, and it's all just testament too, like to Brosmer playing as well as he has down this stretch. And like we talked about in the last episode, even though the Brosmer didn't have his cleanest game against Illinois, it was still productive and able to come up big in the clutch. So feels like everything's kind of clicking. And then like we've been harping on all year, and people have always been asking and pointing out is the run game, and it feels like Darius Taylor. I mean, that was his best game last week of the season, if we can keep doing that and this offensive line gets clicking again, and I know they shuffled some things around with Quinn Carroll and was it who started at
Philip
right tackle?
Daniels.
Philip Daniels. Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
If that becomes the cohesive veteran group that we've been expecting it to be, like this offense can keep moving in the right direction. Like I don't think we've hit the ceiling yet. I think we've seen some highs, we've seen some flashes, but we still have not seen like what a complete game looks like offensively. So that's exciting to me. I do worry about regressing a little bit, or if teams figure it out, like we are just going to rely on the pass a little bit more. But overall, it just feels like we've been the most balanced we've had all season.
Yeah. For me, Max, you mentioned it there. The offensive line is what's going to stand out, or what needs to keep standing out, I guess, for me, I should say. You look at Rutgers' side of things, their run defense, what started out really stout, I think the injuries have taken their toll. All of a sudden, you look at it, they're giving up over 5 yards a carry on average, about 169 yards a game, which puts them about 90th in the country in run defense. So yeah, Philip Daniels starting at right tackle, and Quinn Carroll moving into guard. That really seemed to ignite things for this offensive line, and I'm hoping we can keep that going because, Darius Taylor did go down like 2 or 3 times last game, so he's obviously not 100%. He ended up with like I think 31 touches or something like that, which was nice to be able to have him here at this point in the season to do, right? Because he didn't get all the much workload earlier on in the year. But my point being is I think Marcus Major is a back you could see get about 10 touches this game, just with how improved that offensive line appears to be, and Rutgers' defensive front not being as stout as it once was. So I would really look for the Gophers to lean into that and try and go at these guys that haven't been as good against the run, while maybe Darius Taylor is a little bit banged up. The other thing, the passing defense has also not been amazing. They're still giving up. I just lost it. 242 yards a game, which puts them again at 88th in the country for passing defense. Last game, and I want to keep this rolling this week, is just Elijah Spencer kind of took over the KJ May role, where like every catch he had was converting on a third down, which is great to see. I mean, we use Daniel Jackson in a lot of ways, and obviously is the number one go-to guy. But when you try, they move him around and whatnot, and they want to take shots down the field with him. And when teams take that away, which, I mean, good teams are able to take away oftentimes what you want to do the most. So when teams do take Daniel Jackson away, having someone else to be able to step up consistently, like Elijah Spencer did last week and really the last couple weeks, making those grabs on third downs and moving the chains, that's exactly what this offense needed. I'm hoping the tight ends get a little bit more consistent in catching the ball this week as well. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really physical game. I think they're going to try and come in and establish the run, and hopefully Darius Taylor's good to go. But if not, I think you could see Marcus Major get a few more touches.
Yeah, I don't really have a ton to add. Like we all mentioned, they're just banged up. They have probably their best defensive end, Aaron Lewis. They have a linebacker, Tyreen Paulwell, and cornerback Robert Longerbeam. Before bye week, they were really hurt, below 100%. So we'll see if they're back. I'm going to guess that they are, but nevertheless, they're a banged up team. Like I said, they're kind of on a free fall defensively. Kurt, you mentioned it best. Not very good defending the run. If the Gophers can do exactly what they did last game against Illinois, I don't see how the Gophers won't be successful in the ground game. Additionally, I think this is important, fellas. The Scarlet Knights have not been doing well with the pass rush. In the Big Ten, they are 17th in the nation. In the Big Ten. And I just think that, if you're Brosmer, you're going to have all that time in the pocket. And we know that his dancing has been a lot better as of late in the pocket, but all the more reason he can just kind of sit in there, feel relaxed, and make his plays methodically down the field as he has been. Last game wasn't his best, but now with a little, I think, break from a pressure standpoint, I don't see why Brosmer doesn't really have a comeback game to really get the passing game established as well. Kurt, you mentioned both Jackson and Elijah Spencer, and yeah, they're number 1 and 2, but we also have Driver, who is a great receiver, and then you have Lemeki Brockington out there as well. I feel like our 4 receivers there are tremendous and each have a lot of different talent that they can bring. Why not spread the ball a little bit against this team, especially if you have a lot of time in the pocket? If your Brosmer can really make your check downs and maybe take a deep shot down the field if you do have all that time in the pocket. But yeah, I just think that establishing the run first is going to be a good thing for the Gophers, and hopefully, ultimately, uh, that kind of sets up the rest of the game.
It is
Um,
kind of nice. I just want to add one more thing on top of that. It's kind of nice having Darius Taylor. I know we keep bringing it up, but being able to come out of the backfield, just adding that other element. Because when you got guys going like Jackson and Spencer, and then you also have Taylor, splitting out wide, that makes it a lot harder to defend than,
yeah,
a lot of years we've had basically one trusted receiver, and that's been Jackson the last 2 years. And if he didn't get open, the play was kind of shot. So to
right.
have three reliable options for sure with Jackson, Spencer, and Taylor, it's helped this office tremendously.
Absolutely. Let's talk about defensively, fellas. Curdy, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Monangai, right? That's your top priority, just focusing in on stopping the run. I don't have their backup's name written down, but he is also a talented back. So I know Monangai was banged up heading into the bye. Uh, Max, I think you sent it in. Supposedly he had a concussion as well, potentially. So, or some sort of head injury that they were looking at. Um, I'm assuming the coach is going to prepare that he's playing anyway. Just a really physical back. And so when you look at the back last week for Illinois that had success, it was their bigger back, McCrary or McCray. I don't remember for sure, but he's a back that had success on us last week. So got to be able to wrap up and get him down. You're gonna have to gang tackle him. So safeties, linebackers, gonna have to come up and have a good day against these guys. Because I mean, we kind of alluded to it. They're not comfortable when you get them into third and long. Ethan hasn't been, great in those situations. He is a little mobile, like we knew. So, Jaw Joyner played 18 snaps last week, hoping to get that bumped up more to his usual amount this week, just because he is your best pass rusher, as we saw at the end of the game. So, him and Anthony Smith being on the ends, or Anthony Smith, Strigado, and Jaw Joyner coming after Ethan would help us out a lot. That'd be a advantage Minnesota for sure. So, but it all starts with stopping the run against Rutgers.
Yeah, Monangai, like you said, I mean, it's pretty much their entire offense. And then you look at, I mean, he's led the Big Ten with carries. I think he's got 172 carries. And even if he can't go, because he was listed as out or questionable with a head injury, so I'm not sure if that's a concussion or whatever it is. I don't know how much else you can really do to your head on a football injury, but
Right.
the backup, the Antoine Raymond, like if Monongai can't go, it looks like Raymond will probably get the bulk of the carries, and he's still a solid like big back too. So either way, you just got to prepare for the ground game with the RPO off of that. I mean, that's Soraka's calling card, right, and
Yep.
what Ethan's used to. So really, it feels like if we can just load up the box and force Ethan to go over the top and get pressure in his face, like we already kind of know and we've seen that he can get happy feet. It's looked like it's pretty much been the same this year. Anytime there's pressure, he starts to get a little bit jittery. He's really not mobile at all. So it feels like as long as we can get pressure and kind of keep swarming to the ball carrier, like we've been doing the last few games, our swarm on the run game, like there's always like three,
It's
four,
been
five
really good.
helmets on the ball, which we did not see early on. And that's another thing too. Is, like you look at the teams that had success against us on the ground, like it was Hampton at North Carolina, it was Johnson against Iowa,
Right.
Marks against USC. Like these big, powerful backs, like we've seen them have success on us, and Monanga's just gonna be another one of those guys. He might be one of the better ones that we face all year. So that's got to be the guy
Yeah.
you circle. I guess a couple of things about our defense. Unlike the offense, we've taken the ball away 11 times in the last 5 games. That's been unbelievably great to
We're your
see.
Big Ten
Um,
leaders now in takeaways.
yeah,
Usually that's Iowa.
Yeah.
that's right. But yeah, there's nothing that stands out as like a clear weakness at this point in the season. Like the last few games, we're top 20 in the country in opponent points per game, yards per game, points per play. between the run and the pass defense, it's been fairly equal. We're taking the ball away. We're getting pressure on the quarterback. We're getting sacks. I can't point to one thing that has been an issue in the last few games during this winning streak.
Yeah. Spencer, I got a question that will start with you, and then Max, feel free to
Yeah.
jump in. Like, I wonder, do you expect Rutgers to come out with like, I mean, I don't know how much new stuff you can add, but just being that Corey Heatherman and PJ, for that matter, is just so familiar with what they want to do. But Corey Heatherman was literally just their defensive coordinator or linebackers coach last year. We all know Soraka well. I mean, you flip on a Rutgers game, it looks the exact same as our offense did. It's super
Sure
run
does.
heavy, RPO. They're still running the tunnel screens there as well, which is what we ran all the time here with him. Like, are you expecting Rutgers to come out with like, I mean, every team tries to come out with something new. But do you think Rutgers might come out with like take it to the next step and just be more drastic with it, being that Corey Heatherman was just there last year and knows so much about them?
That's a great question, Kurt. I think that they're going to be more or less the same, what they've been doing, sticking to their identity. And I only say that because I don't know if Athan's going to be able to open the playbook a little bit. In Big Ten play, he's only been completing about 50% of his passes. He's thrown 4 interceptions. He's only had 3 touchdowns. He's the same. Max, you said it. He's the same quarterback as he was with the Gophers. Uh, I think he is comfortable running the RPO offense, and I don't know if he's that comfortable doing anything really outside of that. Um, he is athletic. Here's the thing about Athan. He's athletic. He can get out of the pocket and he can make some moves outside of it. I mean, he's not like, a Heisman contending athleticism quarterback, but I mean, he can take the ball, tuck it and run and hopefully get a
Yeah.
first down. Probably a little bit better than Brosmer, obviously. Um, but because of that, I just haven't seen him really be comfortable and be able to take the offense and make it as his own. And that's why I think offensively, I don't know if they'll really do much to expand upon what they're already doing.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I guess I can't really answer it from a perspective of like I don't know if Shiano's really a guy that's going to come out and like try to change up his whole
Air raid.
philosophy just to yeah. But I guess taking a step back too, I mean, just a little bit of a like looking at it blindly. I mean, you've got a team coming in on a 4-game losing streak, playing a team with a 4-game winning streak. Like, yeah, I would probably be a lot more aggressive. What else do you have to lose at this point? I mean, you're still trying to play for your bowl game eligibility for Rutgers. Like, you're at
Yeah.
home, you're on NBC.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably be going for it on 4th down in a lot of questionable situations. I'm probably going to try a fake punt. I'm probably going to try a flea flicker at some point. Like, all these things just put more pressure on us. But also, if you're Shiano and if you do have Monungai healthy, and though our defense has been improved, you've seen that a good running back can break free on us. I probably wouldn't, go away from the guy who's leading the entire Big Ten in carries, and
Right.
it's probably going to be an NFL running back. But I mean, yeah, if things aren't clicking in the first couple drives, then if I'm Rutgers, yeah, I'm probably going to try something different.
Yeah. And I'm not expecting him to just be running like hooking ladders all day or anything like that. But, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, you just look at, I mean, we've all alluded to this, just Max, you said it better, like with the big backs doing well. I mean, especially when they can kind of isolate, like Iowa did via like misdirection counter, whatever you want to call it. Those two things aren't really what Rutgers does. It's usually all zone. So if they mix in that just to try and, make your defensive backs or outside backers make the one-on-one play, I'm guessing they're going to look at that as their best bet to keep the ball moving down the field. But
Yeah. I just wonder too, if PJ calls Shiano one of his mentors, and we know how conservative PJ is. I mean, this year he seemed to be straying away from that. Does that mean he gets it from Shiano, and he's not really the type of guy to do all of those things? I mean, I
well,
don't
I think
know,
Shiano's
but
definitely of that same cloth. Right? I think Shiano's
sure.
typically pretty conservative, but
Right. So
I mean,
like
we've
with
seen him
that,
go for it on 4th and short in like opposing
sure.
sides territory and stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll see that. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, let's talk about keys of the game and our score predictions, fellas. I'll go ahead and run it first. Number one, I just think that, Outing said it. Is this a trap game? Essentially, I guess it could be, but I think that these Gophers are ready to play. It all has been coming together. Rutgers is banged up. If they lose, it'd be a tremendous disappointment, but I just don't think that they're there. I think number one, if we're going to win this game, you have to shut down Manungai and then let Ethan beat you. If you let Ethan beat you, then there's really nothing you can do. I don't think they'll be able to do that, but shut down the run, make Ethan beat you. And then finally, I just think that it's simple win the turnover margin. Uh, you said it, Max. I mean, our takeaways have been great this season, and I think that we can continue to do that today. Get pressure on Athan. I know that their left guard in early October went down with an injury. They're very big up front, but hopefully we can still apply pressure, make Athan kind of happy on his feet, make some mistakes. Again, he's had more interceptions than touchdowns against Big Ten opponents. So hopefully we keep that going, get some more takeaways, and that'll win the game. I think the Gophers win convincingly, fellas. Got the Gophers winning 31-10.
wow, I
Nice.
like it.
Yeah, I can go next. I guess a couple notes before I get to the keys exactly. The things I just had kind of jotted down and we're thinking about is, Dragan Kesic, 6 for his last 6. Like, hopefully we've got him back. Hopefully his confidence is back. I feel like he's kind of the guy that his confidence maybe never left. He's just always out there to kick the football, and
Yeah,
I mean he's been doing well. So that's been great to see. Um, Rutgers, penalty wise, number one in the country, fewest penalty yards per game. So again, Greg Schiano, they're a really well coached team. They're not going to shoot themselves in the foot with penalties. So that's something else that we have to stay away from, which we've been doing a pretty good job at. Um, and yeah, just thinking about Rutgers and like just where everyone's at in the season, like people talked about them as like, with their schedule being what it was, like with the 12-team playoff expansion, like could they have an outside shot of making it? And then you look now that the last 4 games they've lost by an average of 16.8 points. Like they've kind of been getting beaten up a little bit. Um, is an opportunity for them off a bye to get things back and going. Like we've talked about the storylines, this is going to be a big one for everyone involved, but it's just one that we have to keep, just keep playing our game. The first key really is, it kind of feels like we're really the only ones that can kind of beat ourselves here. So really just continuing with the turnover-free football, and we can't leave any points on the field like we did against Illinois. Uh, our red zone offense has gotten a lot better, and then on the flip side too, Rutgers is like bottom in the country and giving up points when teams are driving on them. So they've let teams get a lot of points when they've driven down the field and gotten in scoring position. So that's something we definitely need to take advantage of. Just try to get some separation early too. The second one is like we've talked about. It's kind of the obvious, just to neutralize the run game. If Ethan is going to beat us, then so beat it, because I don't see that really happening or being a possibility. But unless he's just that motivated, but I guess we'll see on that. And yeah, if we can just make Ethan feel the pressure, give him happy feet. He's not going to be mobile. We don't really have to worry about him scrambling too much. So we can do those things, just play our game, keep continuing on what we've been doing well. I'm really close to you, Spence. I've got Gophers winning 31-13.
wow. Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet here. Number one, defensively, make make Ethan beat you, is what I put down. Cal Monungai's a terrific back. We know he's going to get the ball early and often. So defense, be ready, tackle well, and you got one of the best secondaries in all the country, and they're playing like it. So make them test that as often as possible. I think you got a pretty good shot at winning this one. O-line, clean up the penalties. Still a couple too many false starts, procedural things last week, and just keep getting that push, right? Philip Daniels looks like at right tackle might be the thing that ignited this offensive line, hopefully to keep that rolling. So O-line, just a little bit cleaner game, but keep getting that push is what I put down. And then bounce back game for Brosmer. Didn't have his best game last week, but Rutgers has been giving up a lot of yards, 412 on the year, 95th in the country. That puts them. So Brosmer's going to have his opportunities to keep the chains moving, like he's been doing. Actually, he had success on third down last week as well, even though it was a subpar game from him. So bounce back game for Max, I think, puts this one a little bit more comfortable. I have a little bit different score than you guys. I got 24-13 Gophers. I just think it's going to be low scoring. Um, this would be interesting if PJ keeps the foot on the gas pedal when if the way I see it playing out, if Rutgers offense isn't threatening very often, if he's more content to just kind of run the ball, punt, and then just let his defense keep making stops from kind of like we've seen in the previous years. Curious to see how that plays out this week, just knowing that Rutgers hasn't been the most explosive offensively. But yeah, so I got a little bit lower scoring, but we all got Gophers covering, so I guess maybe you guys should look at betting on Rutgers for this week.
Well, that's 3-0 for your Sky U pod. Go for victories here. But I guess to transition, speaking of putting money on other things, Kurt, you're right, man. I have been off with the famous Sky U pod parlay of the week. I had a little hot streak. I'm sorry to all of you that put your money down on all of us, the millions of you out there that use your money. But, I'm really confident with this end of the year. I think we're going to hit it twice. In these next 3 games, Curdy and Max, I think we're going to hit it twice because I'm very confident in what we are doing here. I'm going to go first. Man, I was looking at these, and there was one that stuck out to me. I have not picked my old alma mater yet. Not the Gophers, but Tulane. Tulane, the Green Wave. They're at home this weekend, 3 o'clock on Saturday against Temple. Now, I looked at the over/under. I'm sorry, I looked at the spread of this game, and Tulane is favored by 26.5 points. It's a lot of points, and they've been dominating. But then I looked at their over/under, and the over/under right now is 49.5. I think I'm gonna go with the over, fellas. Tulane has been hot as of late. They're averaging literally, I think, like 40 some points a game here. They're just on fire. They're lighting it up. I think that they'll be able to take advantage of Temple and be able to run up the score. So give me the over in Tulane against Temple.
Yeah, I don't hate that. Tulane might get there by
Roll it.
themselves.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. You got one,
Uh,
Kurt?
yeah, I'll go. You guys are gonna hate this just because I know how you talked about this team in the rankings. I'm looking at Colorado at Texas Tech. I'm going Buffs -3.5, and here's why. Colorado strung together a couple nice wins. Yes, they should have won, but they did, and they did it pretty convincingly. And you look at the other side, Texas Tech coming off a big upset win at Iowa State. I'm going for the old emotional letdown game. Colorado's got they're on. I don't know if they're big noon kickoff, but they're on Fox. They got it's a big televised game for them. They're going to be fired up, ready to go. I like them to get the W, and I think they can do it by more than 3.5. So I'm going to take Colorado over Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Kurt, you've been on fire, so I like it.
Don't jinx it.
Yeah. Well, I won't mention that you've hit three in a row. So that's no. I hope it keeps going. I can't argue with that logic. I do like the letdown spot there. Yeah, I mean Colorado's offense is still really good, right? So, all right, quit stalling, Max. Just make a pick. I'm just gonna go back to the well. I think this line is way too low. I think they're maybe thinking there's still going to be a quarterback situation, but it sounds like he's coming back. We're going back with Army -5.5 going to North Texas.
I almost picked that one.
Well, I feel better about it.
Is their quarterback back?
Monken said he expects him to be practicing this week. That's really all he said. Either way, even if he's out, I think this line is low because of that, but I feel like
Sure.
that's still a fair line, even with the backup. Like the backup's still pretty solid. I mean, if the starter does play, then I think this line would be probably closer to 10. But yeah, I'm just gonna take Army. Been solid offensively and defensively. Will be kind of a different test. I mean, North Texas is just a high flying offense, but they have no defense whatsoever. And Army against the pass has actually been not terrible on defense. Like you think it was just
Yeah.
a tough nosed run stopping team, but they've actually been pretty good against the pass. And they do get a lot of takeaways and interceptions. So just gonna roll with Army. They're making the playoff.
Dude, I hope so. That would be so sweet to have Army make it in the first year of the 12 team.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the standings are right now after last week's loss, but I was rooting for back-to-back Army Navy games with the conference championship and
Yeah.
then the
Yeah.
actual Army Navy game. That would have been awesome.
That'd be sweet.
Well, there you have it. That is your famous Sky U Pod parlay of the week. I think that's going to hit. So go ahead, open your billfolds, and go ahead and make some bets. That is a moneymaker for you.
Yeah.
We'll finish off here with our picks of the week. There's some pretty good games this week, fellas. Let's start here in the Big Ten. Iowa is going to the Rose Bowl at UCLA. Iowa's 5.5-point favorites. I'm going to go with Iowa, fellas. Iowa seems like they're putting it all together. Kurt, you picked the over against with Iowa and Wisconsin last week. You nailed it. And I think Iowa's finally have an offense that's getting kind of put together here. So give me the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, I went Iowa as well, but I really don't. I wouldn't touch this one. I don't think just because Iowa traveling out west, UCLA, I believe coming off a bye, and then as good as their offense has been, Iowa's improved. Maybe I should say, UCLA can stop the run. They're pretty good against the run, so I think that game could get interesting. But we got to pick it for the show, and I'm gonna take Iowa with it being less than 6. So.
Yeah, it is an interesting spot after the big blowout over Wisconsin. Like you said, having to go all the way up to LA. I am still going to take Iowa, lay in the 5.5. They just don't really seem like a team that's going to be, looking past anyone or having a letdown spot under Ferentz. But
Bruins are just
it is
feeling good about themselves right now. That's all.
Right. Like it is just kind of a scary one a little
Yeah.
bit.
Like, because we saw what they did at Sparty, so it's like, well, is that the Iowa team that travels to these
Right.
things, But
Yeah. And we've seen UCLA.
oh, yeah. I
keep it
apologize.
close.
UCLA upset Nebraska. Good call, outing. Good call. Basically a bye. It's Nebraska. I mean,
yeah. Nebraska, yeah.
Yeah, and I think I misspoke. Yeah, Iowa's 5.5-point favorites, not plus 5.5. Otherwise, I would have nailed that line for this. Next game, we're sticking around here in the Big Ten. Michigan is at Indiana. Indiana is 13.5-point favorites. Indiana's been dominating, fellas. They have been really destroying teams, but I think that's a lot of points for Michigan. They haven't been as great as they have been in the past, but I'm just going to say that Michigan will cover that spread.
Hoosiers big time. Not even close for me. Singetti's just been incredible. And I know Michigan has talent still, but they don't play like it half the time. And I just think, I think Indiana's for real, I guess. So I'm going to take Indiana.
Yeah, I'm going to go Indiana too. I thought I was going to take Michigan just because I felt like maybe this is the toughest defensive opponent Indiana's played, but I just don't even know how much Michigan's going to be able to score. And with their quarterback situation, I don't know. These teams, they've showed us who they are. I think we got to listen at this point. Indiana at home, I think they could win big here too.
When's the last legitimate Michigan win in their history? Haven't had it. Connor Stallions wipes it all last year. The refs give them games this year. I'm done with Michigan.
Fair enough. Let's travel down south, fellas, in the SEC. Couple big games. Let's start with this one. Georgia is at Ole Miss. Georgia is 2.5 point favorites. Give me Georgia. This is one of
Yeah.
my nitpicky kind of rankings here. We know that Ohio State's ranked number two, Georgia's number three. I think that I would flip that. I think I'd go Georgia two, Ohio State three. Georgia's the real deal. They kind of had a bad first half against Alabama, but they almost came back and won that game. I think that they're awesome. So give me Georgia and the win and the points.
Me too. I think Georgia's going to win, so I'll take that spread as well. Ole Miss might be the most disappointing, outside of Florida State, might be the most disappointing team in college football this season. So Bulldogs, they know they can't drop another one and be 100% safe, so I think they get the job done.
Yeah, I'm going to take Georgia too. I feel like Ole Miss on paper looks really good, and I think they get boosted a little bit by that. But I don't know, they just haven't been able to pull off that huge stunner yet. So until
Nope.
that happens, that's less than a field goal. Bulldogs.
Great. Sticking with the SEC, Alabama at LSU for their old classic rivalry. Alabama's 2.5 point favorites on the road. This is interesting, fellas, because LSU's at 15, Alabama's at 19 in the college football playoff. I think whoever loses this one probably doesn't have a shot, being that they have
It's an
three losses.
elimination game for sure.
It's kind of surprising that Bama's still kind of ranked at 11. I'd probably put Boise ahead of them, to be honest with you. I know Bama's a good team, but this is our most deserving sort
Right.
of thing. But I digress. I do think Bama goes in there and does cover that spread and wins the game. Uh, yeah, give me Bama.
Night game in LSU is tough, and I can't figure out Bama. They just crushed Missouri, but Missouri also was out without their quarterback. So I think I said the same thing last week, and I picked against Bama. I'm going to do it again. I'm picking against Bama. LSU's at home, so I'll take the points. I think LSU's going to be able
Yeah,
to score on them as well. That's the other thing. Bama's defense, until last week, hasn't looked like much. So
yeah. No, I think I'm going to go with LSU too at home. Night game too. Like you said, Alabama. Like I have to keep reminding myself that this is not the Nick Saban Alabama that's just
yeah,
consistent and the same and disciplined every game. Like I don't know. I'm curious to see what they look like. And like you said, this is an elimination game for sure on the road, one of the tougher environments. I, I mean, they've got the players to handle it, but they just have not proven it this year to be a team that is like, yeah, they're just going to walk in there and get the job done, even in a tough situation. But
right,
not that LSU necessarily has either, but let's take a couple points.
yeah.
All right, last pick, fellas. We're going back to the Big Ten. Washington is going all the way out east to Penn State. Penn State's 13.5 point favorites. Boy, that's a lot of points, but I think I'm going to go Penn State. I think that they're going to sort of avenge kind of what happened last week and hopefully get back on track. So give me Penn State.
I'm going
Max,
to take Penn
go.
State too. I
Are you?
I feel like Washington might be. I don't know. That's a
Are
long way to
they? Are
They
travel.
they?
just beat USC.
No, I wasn't gonna say they're dead. I was gonna say like they're just one
Okay.
of those teams that they're coming
Well,
off a win, like a
USC
big
is
win for
certainly
them.
dead.
Yeah.
They're definitely on they're on life support for sure. But that's what I mean.
There's
Like
an
they just beat a team that like yeah they're just dead. Like I don't know. They Washington has not looked great overall. And I don't know. That's just you're traveling all the way across the country. Penn State's gonna be pretty pissed off after that close game to Ohio State. Give me the Nittany Lions.
I'm taking Washington because you two picked Penn State. Somebody's got to do it.
Hey, 50-50
I
shot, Kurt.
I mean, I just don't get the pressure's going to be on the. I mean, James Franklin's on the hot seat, but their offense has just been so unimpressive to me. Drew Aller's the most unimpressive quarterback of a top 10 team there is. He just doesn't do anything
Yeah,
for me. I don't know.
yeah.
You didn't score a touchdown against Ohio State. And he started out
Well,
well.
yeah.
I
Let's
think
let
Miller
me ask.
Moss would be a lot better on Penn State than Drew Aller. I don't know if
Sure.
that's a hot
Yeah.
take or not. I know
No,
Miller Moss isn't as mobile, but I think Miller Moss is just a much more talented passer. Um, I don't know.
I have a question for you both. Is James is Franklin out of the Big Ten? Is he out of a job if he loses to the Gophers?
I think if he misses the playoff, it's going to get pretty hot with how easy and manageable their schedule was overall. Um,
Do they miss the playoff, assuming that they only lose to the Gophers?
if they
I mean,
just lose, well, they still play Oregon, do they not? Or am I wrong? No, I'm sorry. I always think it's Penn State, Oregon. It's not. It's Wisconsin and Oregon that
mhm.
still play. Um, 10-2 is going to be tight. I mean, there's a lot of SEC teams in the mix, and they're going to knock each other off. Like I think you need like Texas then to beat A&M at the end of the year, but that game could go either way. Like there's a lot of games like that are going to play a factor in that. I mean, given how much they already apparently respect Penn State, it's certainly still possible for them to stay in that top 12 with 2 losses, I would say. But um, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be tough. It definitely is not a given, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, stay tuned for the rest of the college football season. But with that, thanks everyone for tuning in to another episode of Sky U Pod. Be sure to check us out on YouTube, X, and wherever you get your podcasts. We encourage you to go ahead and check out our affiliate, thecollegehuddle.com. That way you can tune into a lot of other college football podcasts and read articles at your leisure. We just ask you to like and subscribe to our videos. It really helps our channel out and really gets the Gopher love spreading throughout all of our Gopher fans. But with that, we love you guys. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Go Gophers.